Welcome to 734 Games, and this is your host, Tom. And before I start today, let me get started by saying I think that most of the police officers out there have a very hard job, and they do a good job protecting the public, and most of them are peace officers, and they are out to help their communities. So this is not a video against police officers, but it's a video against dishonest public speakers. Now, this video is entitled Jordan Peterson Debunks White Privilege. Now, Jordan Peterson is in the video for like 30 seconds, and I might even be exaggerating, but he really does no such thing. Let's see what Jordan Peterson says.
I think the idea of white privilege is absolutely reprehensible. And it's not because white people aren't privileged. We have all sorts of privileges, and most people have privileges of all sorts, and you should be grateful for your privileges and work to deserve them, I would say.
Now, after listening to Jordan Peterson, it sounds to me like he didn't debunk anything. All he is saying is don't virtue signal. And that is patronizing white people. When people virtue signal, that's very patronizing. Now, I grew up in a mostly white neighborhood. I didn't grow up out in the inner city, but even to me, that's kind of patronizing. So, and I'm not someone who believes that, blacks need reparations or that blacks cannot achieve because they're black. Sometimes if you're discriminated against in one area, you just got to find another way. The world is not fair. There's always going to be discrimination. And even for you white guys out there, or you white people out there, you're going to find discrimination. Maybe not in the basis of skin color, but there's privilege on the basis of looks. There's privilege on the basis of class. These things exist, and they always have, and they always will, and you're going to have to deal with it. That's it. And Jordan Peterson basically says that. Now, what we get for the rest of the video is Brandon Tatum talking. Now, I'm not going to talk about what his intentions are. I don't know what he gets out of. But I know he's become internet famous, basically talking about what Colin Kaepernick did. And to me, it's like, you had Colin Kaepernick, who got up on the time of the NFL, and he took a knee at a football game. The only thing is, Colin Kaepernick was at work. Generally, you can go out and you can protest anytime you want, usually just not at work. Most people get fired for that sort of thing. So on the left, you have people who do that, and I think he's kind of the right answer to Colin Kaepernick. And to me, they both have a lot in common. They both have gotten famous off of doing their own sort of, protest, although one is more public speaking on the right. We don't really protest that much. You have people who speak publicly. And it's funny, one of the things he says that debunks his, the white privilege and his lack of privilege as a black man is that he can spend his money on a house just like a white man. That's interesting, that the idea of privilege is based on the idea that you can spend your money. Like, anyone's ever gonna know, I don't know, that's just weird and doesn't make sense. Now, in another video, Brandon Tatum talks about George Floyd, and he says what the cop did was wrong, and basically that it wasn't racially motivated, as if he were there on the scene in the mind of that police officer. So he knows that, no cop anywhere is ever racist. Now, I can tell you, this is a guy who says that he's never dealt with racism. And, I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it's not a bad place. And most white people are not racist, but I have ran into a few racist people. I lived out in California, and actually, I met more racist people out in California, out west. I've been to Arizona, I've been to Vegas, I've been to all those places, and I've ran into more racism out there than I ever have out here in Michigan. And the idea that there is no racism is funny from a guy who was a cop out there, because I remember, going out there and going to a gun store, and, I served in the military, and there was a guy who was a cop, and he was like, someone like that shouldn't be able to buy a gun, looking at me. Now, I don't wear my pants sagging or walk around, I don't present myself in a street manner. And as a matter of fact, when I lived out there, I lived in South Central for a minute, and that was a little hairy for me. So I moved to Glendale, California, and spent most of my time out there in Glendale, California. And it's not a bad neighborhood, but, California is very expensive, and I'm glad to be home. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, the idea that that this video debunked white privilege in any way. And I'm not saying, I really don't want you guys, white people, to go out there and be patronized. But there's all kinds of privilege in the society, and the real speaker wouldn't tell you that he's debunking white privilege. What he would say is that there's always going to be privilege. Get over it and deal with it, no matter what color you are. Maybe you're not beautiful. Maybe you're not, maybe you weren't born in a good family, and you weren't born into money. You just got to deal with those things, and that's it. That's pretty much just it for this episode of 734 Games. This is your host, Tom, signing off from 734 Games, where gaming is alive.
Erismorn, a guardian without a ghost. I wonder how that must feel. Hollow.